It was past 3 a.m. The station's corridors glowed with dim yellow lights, and silence ruled, broken only by the occasional ring of a distant phone. Most security cameras were practically asleep, but someone wasn't. Wearing gloves, a figure moved stealthily through the records room where NYPD drug raid files were stored. From his coat, he pulled a thick envelope and quietly slid it into one of the lockers. Stamped in red on the front, Bronx Operation 004. The locker plate read one name loud and clear: Lieutenant Darius Cole. By morning, the news was everywhere. Star of narcotics team accused of theft? 9:20 a.m., same day. Darius Cole, 38, black, sharp-minded, disciplined, one of the fastest promoted officers in NYPD history. But that morning, just as he reached for his coffee mug, the door swung open. 2 internal affairs officers and a captain walked in. One sentence froze the room. Cash from the last operation was found in your locker. You're being placed on leave. Darius's brow furrowed. What are you talking about? A voice cut him off, dripping with thinly veiled hate. You've been protected long enough. This city's tired of your kind. Whispers rippled through the department. Guess he rose too fast. He was the only black guy on that raid, wasn't he? They always crack when they climb too high. In just minutes, his reputation was flipped upside down. But one person was quietly paying attention. Young Detective Maria Velez. She wasn't speaking yet, but she had noticed something odd that night. The 312 security feed was missing. For now, no one would listen to her. The enemy within had already made the first move. Lieutenant Darius Cole sat alone at the metal table. His jacket was off, tie loosened. His gaze locked on a dusty portrait of a former precinct chief hanging on the wall. The very system he had served for years was now preparing to devour him whole. The door opened. In stepped Detective Ray Lancaster, white, smug, cold. He wore a smile heavy with contempt. He had worked under Darius during the Bronx raid. Well, look who finally slipped up, he sneered. I always knew you'd fall. Hell, your first mistake was being born the wrong color. Darius sat tall, voice tight with control. I betrayed no one. That cash isn't mine. My locker was locked. Lancaster scoffed. We both know how that key system works. Who's gonna believe you? You think the jury's gonna look like you? In the precinct break room, the chatter was boiling. Another one who thought the badge made him untouchable. He rode our backs to the top. What else would he do with that kind of money? The internal video footage from the early morning hours was mysteriously deleted, labeled a technical malfunction. But Darius knew better. This wasn't a glitch. This was a cover-up. Later that afternoon, another blow hit the headlines. Cole's sealed record, high school fight resurfaces. A long-dismissed teenage altercation was dragged into the spotlight. His past was now being rewritten as his motive. But deep inside her desk drawer, Detective Velez clutched a small USB drive tightly in her palm. No one knew she had it. Not yet. But maybe, just maybe, it held everything they needed. The room was cold. The flickering fluorescent light beat down on Darius's tired eyelids. The gray walls felt like a shrinking cage, airless and tight. He wasn't handcuffed, but the chair was bolted to the floor, cutting off any illusion of freedom. A bottle of water sat untouched on the metal table. No one had given him permission to drink it. The door creaked open. This time it wasn't a prosecutor. It was Karen Doyle, an internal affairs investigator. Thin-framed glasses, crisp posture, silent authority. She sat across from him, opened a slim folder, and without a word, locked eyes with Darius. You've served this city for years. Medals, promotions, praise, but maybe you always had two faces. Darius took a deep breath. His voice was tired, but clear. I have no idea how that cash ended up in my locker. I remember every detail from that raid. I never touched that money. Karen slid out a photograph from the file. It showed a sealed plastic evidence bag. Inside it, a red-stamped envelope. Below the bag was a torn label from a locker. Lieutenant Cole, 004. No footage, but the trail is there. No fingerprints, true. But absence of prints doesn't scream innocence. Sometimes it screams calculation. Darius's throat tightened. He swallowed hard. Elsewhere in the station, Detective Lancaster sipped his coffee and whispered to a colleague. Climbing to lieutenant ain't easy, especially not for a guy like Cole. Sometimes the system cleans itself out. No camera recorded that line. But the intent, like the ticking clock on the wall, was loud enough. Tick, tock. Back in the interrogation room, Doyle delivered the final blow. Your locker's digital lock only responds to your badge. The system logs only you. Cameras, broken, but your access card? fully active. Too many coincidences. Does that really happen to an innocent man? Darius tapped the table softly. His eyes were glassy, unblinking. If this city runs on bias, not justice, then no matter what I say, I'm already guilty, aren't I? Silence. Even now, my only crime is being too visible. The door shut again. The room dimmed. And somewhere in the audience, a thought flickered. What if he actually did it? Or worse, what if he's just the system's perfect scapegoat? But the truth hadn't surfaced yet, because the darkest place in the system is the courtroom. The atmosphere in the courtroom felt less like justice and more like a public execution. When the heavy wooden doors opened, all eyes turned to one man, Darius Cole. His suit was neatly pressed, but there was no badge on his collar. To many in that room, he was no longer a decorated NYPD officer. He was the department's disgrace. 12 jurors sat in the box. None shared his skin tone, and in their eyes there was no search for truth, only quiet judgment. Judge Robert McAllister, a 2-decade veteran of the bench, sat still, his gaze heavy and unmoving. Without glancing at a file, he spoke. This courtroom is responsible for upholding the law. But more than that, we must protect the public's trust. Today, it is not just an officer on trial. It's the institution he represents. The prosecutor stood, calm, confident, already convinced. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the evidence is straightforward. Marked cash from the raid was found in the defendant's locker. The digital lock was assigned solely to him. No fingerprints? That's not an oversight. That's preparation. Darius's lawyer rose slowly. He carried no files. His voice barely filled the room. My client has served honorably in countless operations. His record speaks for itself. He had no motive to commit such a crime. The prosecutor quickly countered. Honor can breed arrogance. Most breaches come from those we trust the most. Then came Detective Ray Lancaster, stepping into the witness box. His eyes locked onto Darius as he delivered his line. No one accessed that hallway during the night shift. System logs show only Cole's badge was used. Timestamp 3:12 a.m. Hours later, the envelope was discovered in his locker. Darius wanted to scream, to stand, to point, but he remained silent, because in this room, his voice wasn't evidence. The judge furrowed his brow and turned to the defense. Do you have any evidence to disprove these claims? The lawyer hesitated. No answer came. Silence filled the courtroom. One juror scribbled something in their notebook. Maybe. Their minds were already made up, and a question began to fester in the minds of those watching. Could Darius actually be guilty? Maybe he wasn't so clean after all. But truth doesn't always rise first. Because courtrooms don't always seek truth. They crown the most convincing story. Just as Judge McAllister reached for his gavel to deliver the verdict, the back doors of the courtroom slammed open. Marching in, wearing her NYPD uniform, was Detective Maria Velez. In her hand was a small black USB drive. Her eyes locked directly onto the judge. Your Honor, before a decision is made, I have new evidence to present. A backup security video from the night the system was allegedly down. Heads turned across the room. The prosecutor froze. Lancaster's face lost all color. The judge scowled in frustration. Why wasn't this submitted earlier? Velez steadied her voice, trying to suppress the tremor. Because someone inside tried to erase it. I recovered it quietly from the backup server. And now, it's here. A screen flickered on. The room held its breath. The timestamp read 3:12 a.m. In the dim hallway, a figure appeared. Wearing black gloves, his face turned away from the camera, but on his right bicep, one unmistakable detail. An American flag tattoo. Ray Lancaster. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge lowered his gaze. The prosecutor was speechless. And for the first time, the jurors looked at Darius, not with suspicion, but something closer to regret. The judge slowly brought down the gavel. His voice cracked. Lieutenant Darius Cole, you are unanimously found not guilty. Darius closed his eyes. His knees trembled. For a moment, there were no words. Only the weight of breath, the language of silence. His eyes met Velez's. She nodded. The judge continued. Detective Ray Lancaster will now be subject to investigation for evidence tampering, judicial interference, and a hate crime. Lancaster didn't move, his eyes fixed on the floor as if nailed to it. There was no applause. Because this victory wasn't loud. It was silent, and silence more than anything amplifies the truth. Outside, microphones swarmed Darius. He said only one thing. This isn't justice. It's just the first smear being wiped away. And then, he turned to the cameras. proving that truth, once seen, cannot unsee itself.